And we are live. Happy Friday, October 28th to everybody here that's hanging out with us tonight. It's once again another installment of David Green Real Estate. My name is Kyle Renke. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the David Green team and David Green's best friend. Super excited tonight. Here in the studio, we have with us none other than David's loan partner with the One Brokerage, Christian Bachelder, and David Green himself. We're going to be having some good topics tonight. We're going to be talking about the economy, what's happening in the economy right now, how that affects your money, and how you can control it, how you can improve it, how you can position yourself in this economy, especially among the looming economic recession. You're probably seeing a ton of clickbait, a lot of stuff that's happening, and we're here to really interpret that information. We brought in Christian to let you know how that's affecting your assets, how that's affecting loan interest rates, right? And the housing market. So really excited to jump into tonight's conversation and welcome. And by the way, would love if you could hit that like button and that subscribe button. If you feel like David and Christian and myself are bringing some value to you tonight, don't forget to do that. Really helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps us bring more people into this broadcast so we can have a good conversation, a good discussion around these topics. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Christian and say, what's going on, my man? You got the new studio over there. How's it looking?
I do. We're actually going to have some cool neon lights coming in with the One Brokerage logo and everything. So it's going to end up looking pretty cool at the end here. But don't have the messy room behind me anymore. We got it all cleaned up, which is exciting. But awesome. Always fun to be here. David, Kyle, you guys are best in the business to be sharing the space with.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. One thing I'm going to say is maybe check your settings. It actually seems like your cool mic is not coming through. So I want to play around with that. But that being said, speaking of cool, we've got none other than Mr. Got to keep his dome warm, bigger pockets, man. David Green. I love the I love the hat that you got on there. You know what they call that in Canada?
I don't.
I believe it's called a toque.
They call it a toque?
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
It sounds like something Gandalf would say in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, it is. Are you cold there in your office right now?
No, I'm actually not at all, and I think I look kind of ridiculous in this beanie. It's more that Christian wore his hat backwards, and I was like, well, he looks cool, and Kyle has his hair looking really nice.
I'll get the hoodie on.
Yeah, like I was basically feeling left out, if we're just completely honest.
Well, welcome to the club, man. You deserve to be here.
Yeah.
So,
if anyone remembers Parappa the Rapper from PlayStation 1, I believe that's what I think I look like right now.
Well, you gotta turn it a little bit to the side, just a tad. I think it's up too high too. You got to pull it down a little bit, like it's too. Yeah, there you go. Now you got a little bit more of the hipster, put some coffee in your hand.
Yeah, I look terrible, man. I look like I should be wearing skinny jeans and listening to like poems and my black faded t-shirts and not having an opinion about anything, really. Just like trying to find common ground with every single thing that I find, not having like a strong sense of who I am. I'm basically turning into like one of those NPCs that are walking around trying to fit into the world. I don't know why anyone wears these things. How do you make this look cool?
Yeah, you gotta pull it. Oh, there we go. That's more of like a Midwest, farm worker kind of look there.
I look a little like Link from Zelda, just like if this was green. Christian, how did you look cool, dude? Like, what are you doing different than me that's working so well?
No, I can't tell you all the secrets now. Does this sound a little better, Kyle?
It sounds good.
Better? Okay, yeah. Awesome.
That's Matt Browning said, not quite 8 mile, maybe more 4.5 mile. That's a good one. That's pretty good.
I like that. Very good, Matt. And Andrew, by the way, says he's here for the jujitsu metaphors and analogies. So
there it is.
With that, what I'm going to do here in a few minutes, again, you guys, we're talking about the economy, your money, and the looming economic recession. And we want to have you on here to talk with David and Christian and myself. But part of that is how do you get on the show? We get asked this question every single week. And so I'm going to walk you through what that looks like right now. basically, if you have a question specific to tonight's topic of the economy, your money, and the looming economic recession, or maybe you just want to come in and share your point of view and what you're seeing from your perspective, we would love to have you on. So I'm going to put this ticker on live down here at the bottom. It's going to be scrolling across. And basically, all you have to do is send a number to 833-777-0309. That'll actually send it to us here in the studio, and then we'll be able to kind of text back and forth with you a little bit and see if we can get you here on live to chat with all of us. So that being said, I'm really excited to talk about a lot of tonight's topic, especially because I've been hearing a lot about it in the news. It's like anytime I open up my social media feed, there's always stuff about what the Fed's doing. The bubble. I'm hearing all types of bubbles across real estate, across stocks, across bonds, across everything. So, David, I'm going to open it up to you to let us know what direction you want to take this tonight.
If you guys have been following us the last couple weeks, we've been talking about the state of the economy, because you can talk about real estate strategies, but your strategy is probably going to be different depending on like what you are looking at as far as the economy, the background that you're engaging in. So we like to spend time talking about the news, talking about what's going on, trying to anticipate what is likely to occur without causing, it's not an excuse to not take action. That's what we're basically getting at. We're not saying don't do anything, you're doomed, the sky is falling. Where it's more like, hey, this is what's likely going to happen. How do you position yourself in a place where you can win? So one of the things we've been talking about a lot is that when the market was doing great, a ton of people were making money in a lot of different ways. It was easy and cheap, and it worked. You could make money in NFTs. You can make money in cryptocurrencies. You probably made a lot of money at your job if you just had a decent amount of skills. Like if you worked in tech, you probably made 70, 80, maybe $100,000 a year as a new person who just got a job and doesn't know anything. And you think that's normal. That seems like it's normal. Well, when we head into a recession, you start to see how well the portfolio that you built was actually structured. If it was going to stand the test of time, we talk about building a fortress. A fortress is a property that will withstand attack. It will withstand challenges. It's meant to survive when you have people coming after you. And that could be taking place through the lens of the economy getting worse, the recession getting worse, capitalism being attacked. It doesn't really matter. If you've got a fortress, it can withstand whatever. So we can talk about some news articles. We can talk about macroeconomics and what we're seeing coming. But the point is to teach you how to build your wealth in a sense that won't lose value when the market turns.
I love this. And we actually have Justin, who's going to come in a minute here. We're going to see if we can bring him on live. I actually think his question is starting off with a really good jumping point for us. So, Justin, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to send you the link. We'll see if you can get you started in. Christian, from a lending perspective, and you can kind of see right here, I'm curious what your thought. P-Bands dropped the question. Was it this one here that you wanted to take a look at? Yeah.
Let me see which one you're highlighting here. So it looks like P-Bands, not sure what the full name is there, but we'll go by the screen name. Recently applied, it looks like the quote was having you pay more than 3 points and you were being capped at 3 points. So that's a good question. You were asking, it looks like, why can't you pay 6 points? Why can you only pay 3? It sounds like maybe you were looking for a significant buy down. Maybe you can continue, explain that a little bit further. But the idea there is there's certain loan guidelines that were set in 2008 to prevent predatory lending and basically charging people too much for a loan. I understand your concept is that if I just want to pay down my rate as far as I can possibly go and get a really low rate, why should I be limited to that, right? And mostly the reasoning is because, let's say you do pay 6 points, and just for everybody for reference, on a $500,000 loan, 6 points is, just think of it as 6% of the loan amount. So that's 6 times 5, 30 grand, right? If the rates were to come down, and let's say you bought it from a 7 to a 5%, something, right? Just throwing out arbitrary numbers. If the rates were to come down to a 5% in the next 2 years, you wouldn't have had enough time to make up that 30 grand that you spent. And if you did go to refinance, and let's say you got a 4.5%, you could end up in this perpetual cycle of always paying points to buy down some incredible rate when the market would reach that rate naturally in 2 or 3 years, right? And you get stuck in the cycle of trying to always beat the market, whereas you're not really taking advantage of the market swings, which is how a typical refinance works, right? You take the market rate. If the rate comes down, you're able to refinance to that. So I understand the frustration there if you just wanted to go get the absolute lowest rate that was available on the rate sheet right now. But the reasoning behind that is because they're honestly, at the end of the day, trying to protect consumers, right? And not allowing you to just spend an exorbitant amount of money to buy your rate down in an environment where, we may see a pivot in the next 2 years to get down to the interest rate you were trying to buy down to anyways, right? So hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure if you want to clarify a little bit further in the comments, we can absolutely talk about it. Or even better, like come out on the video.
That's actually a like a regulation. That's not a one brokerage saying we won't let you pay 6 points. I think what he's trying to say was, I have no problem paying 6 points. Why can I only pay 3?
Correct. Yeah. And if that's how I interpreted that, then that would be the answer. If that's something where we were charging more points than someone else, absolutely possible, right? We're not going to be the absolute cheapest loan product everywhere that you search. In that case, I would just be curious what your situation was that was causing us to be that different, and making sure that other lender was quoting you correctly. So could be on either side of that spectrum. I'm happy to continue that conversation if you wanted to post in the chat or even come on the video here with us.
Awesome. So P-Bands, if you want to come in and chat some more about that, let me know. I just sent you a text message. Another thing that I thought would be really good, Justin was going to try to come on here, but unfortunately his camera isn't working. But Justin's question is, hey guys, as a newbie, it's pretty hard trying to understand what's going on in the market and the economy as a whole. Any websites, posts, or email chains that he can look up to be more up to date? Hope that makes sense. So kind of curious what you guys think. Christian, we'll start off with you in terms of what types of resources do you use to stay on top of the market and what's going on?
Yeah, this is a super good question. I think for a customer standpoint, right, it's a lot different than us because we get a lot of our information from our lending partners. But I mean, for mortgage rate tracking, there's a website and a service called MBS Highway. I believe they actually switched to a paid model now. MBS stands for Mortgage Backed Security Highway. That's a service
that's Barry Habib's company, right?
I'm not sure who owns it, but that's possible. Okay. But they do a really good job at staying on track of what's going on with mortgage-backed securities and how that's impacting supply and demand, which, like anything else in the economy, impacts pricing and ultimately rates that we're offering on mortgages. But I mean, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, coming to things like this is a really good way. If you're working with our company, staying in contact with your loan officer and making sure they're updating you with the information that comes down to them is a good way. But I mean, apart from that, I don't have an ultimate source of knowledge. I mean, there's good places like Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal and, the obvious ones. But really, I mean, things like this, coming on and asking questions is going to give you more details and more information than you could ever get on a newspaper article, right?
Absolutely. And David, how about you? I mean, you and I were just talking about the other day, like 95% of your life is spent with your AirPods, like in your ears, and you're just consuming information on a regular basis so that you can stay on top of this, so that you can educate other people about this, so that you can, navigate the murky waters that are coming ahead. What are some of the resources and things you like to tap into?
The first thing I'll have to point out is you got to be, when you're looking for where you get your information, you have to be careful of it because you never get information. You get information bent towards a perspective every time. Whoever you're reading it from has a perspective they believe in, and they are either interpreting the information for you in whatever article or video you're listening to, or they are highlighting the part of the total aggregate of information that supports whatever it is that they believe. And that's what's so tricky, is what we just want is the info, but what you actually end up getting is the info plus the opinion of whoever it is that's writing it. So 100%. Then you got to read information from each side, and then you got to try to figure out, like, what does this mean? And now you're putting so much effort into gathering your information that you're not productive in your day, and it's maddening. So one of the ways that I avoid it is I try to listen to a different news source like Valuetainment. I listen to them a lot, Patrick Bet-David's company. And I more want to hear Patrick's take on the information. It's not so much just, well, what is going on? Because you can listen to the Fed and they're going to come out there and they're going to say, here's what we're going to do. But unless you're super duper into this stuff and you're a big nerd, you don't know what to make of that. right? Like it's very easy to hear the Fed say we're going to raise rates and be like, oh, shoot, I better go refinance right now before these rates go up. But then you find out later that the interest rates that you were looking at already anticipated this increase and it was baked into the numbers 3 weeks ago. And you panicked for no reason. And like that's very easy to happen. So I try to listen to the people that are experts in the industry and let them interpret the news for me if I trust the person, which is kind of what you guys are doing here tonight. You're here listening to me, Kyle, and Christian, as we're interpreting for you the news articles that we see, and you got to pick a person that you trust. I mean, there's no way around it. If you're watching CNN, you trust CNN. If you're watching Fox News, you trust Fox News. If you're listening to me, if you're listening to Patrick Bet-David, if you're listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, whoever you listen to, you are trusting a person. There is no pure information that's out there, and that can be frustrating. As far as the sources that I tend to get this stuff from, it's like I was saying, it's more people than it's going to be the actual news source. Now, what we did do before today's show is we went and Googled stuff, and I read through quite a few articles, and I picked the 3 that I thought were the most relevant to talk about. Now, we also have a video clip for you, and it's Patrick Bet-David interviewing a man named Richard Werner, who was the guy responsible for quantitative easing in the country. He came up with the idea for quantitative easing itself, which is the mechanism that led to the inflation that we're all talking about right now. And Richard gives a perspective that I've never heard anyone else say that was simply fascinating that I wanted to share with everybody here. And it's a great example of how just reading the news can still lead you astray. Because one of the popular things, I heard this my entire life I wasn't a 7-year-old following economics, believe it or not. I didn't get into that until much later in life. But when I did start paying attention to this, when I was in college and I was taking economics classes, when I was listening to the people on the radio, there was this conventional wisdom that you hear all the time. And we tend to just assume if everyone believes that it's the right way. And in this case, it was higher rates slow down inflation, lower rates cause inflation. And I just was like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. It wasn't until very recently that I realized that was an oversimplification of how things work. Because I understood inflation when I was younger and ignorant to be the increase of prices. That's actually not the definition of inflation. Inflation is the increase of the money supply. You are inflating how many dollars are in place, or yen or rubles or whatever your currency happens to be. That's what inflation is. A symptom of inflation is that prices rise. But I'm sure you can imagine if we doubled the amount of dollars in circulation today, it's not like everything would cost twice as much tomorrow. There is a period of time that it takes for everything to adjust once the change happens. So prices going up or down are a symptom of what inflation is doing, yet there is still some data that shows when interest rates go up, it slows down price increases. And when interest rates go down, it increases price increases. It has been incorrectly interpreted as that is because of inflation. And I'm not splitting hairs here. There is an actual difference. If you can grasp that inflation measures the amount of money and the velocity of money measures how fast money changes hands, this will start to make sense to you. Because when you increase interest rates, you do slow down the velocity of money. I am less likely to take my money and give it to someone else if I have to borrow money at 9% than I am if I get to borrow money at 3%. If I'm looking at buying the new Tesla Plaid because I want to race Christian because he has a car faster than everybody else, and I got to pay a 2% interest rate on that car, and the car is, how much is a Plaid, Christian? 90 grand or something?
Yeah, 100, 120 in that ballpark.
Okay, so if it's $100,000 for a Plaid, I'm more likely to buy one at 2% than I am at 9%. I'm more likely to buy it at 9% than I am at 15%. So of course, I'm going to spend more money when rates are low, particularly in assets that are sensitive to borrowing and leveraging. Like real estate is probably the biggest one that's out there, but so is cars and some appliances. Like you can usually borrow money to buy washers and dryers and stuff like that. Something you're paying cash for becomes, it's not as impacted by interest rates going up or down, but because higher interest rates cause the economy to slow down and it creates fear, then you're less likely to spend your cash. Anyway, here's what we're getting at. We're going to watch a video here pretty soon that talks about the relationship that is incorrectly assumed by economists and has been forever that raising rates will slow down inflation. And my mind was blown when I listened to Richard talk about it. A, because he's the most credible person on this topic. He created quantitative easing. Okay. And B, because everyone assumed conventional wisdom without ever testing it. That was insane to me. That all these economists that we all think are the smartest people ever never bothered to run a model or a study to see, like, does raising rates actually slow inflation? So Kyle, unless you have a better time to do it, you want to cue that video and we can watch that?
Yeah, let me go ahead and get it queued up right here for y'all. There we go.
Of course, that's an interesting question always, because central bank watcher, in the mainstream, will focus on interest rates, and central banks themselves will always try to get your attention focused on interest rates. And it's a bit like the magician on stage when they're performing a trick, and of course they don't want you to see what really does the trick. When they do that hand movement, they will distract your attention with the other hand and say, look here, this is happening. Maybe have a little diversion story. And that's what interest rates are. But it's such a huge diversion. It's worthwhile spending a few moments on this, because actually, famously, there's so many different schools in economics, right? Different schools of thought, different economists, they all have different ideas. They always argue and squabble. Well, there's one idea that all the different schools of economic thought of the last 200 years in English language economics agree on. Namely, they all say, if you lower rates, this is good for the economy, growth will go up. If you raise interest rates, this will slow the economy. You can go back to David Ricardo, classical economists, Alfred Marshall. And central bankers for the last 30 years have been saying this on a daily basis. Watch interest rates, because when we raise them, it's going to slow things. If we lower them, it's going to stimulate. They say this constantly. Now, because this is repeated so many times, we all assume that easily that, of course, this has been empirically tested and checked hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. So we don't need to check this, right? Well, how many empirical studies exist that demonstrate this relationship? 5. 0. Wow. There isn't one, because I did the first empirical check of this. Very hard to publish this. Nobody, the economists don't want you to see this. But what I found is it's not true. It's just not true. There is no empirical evidence for this.
So what we're doing today in the States, when we're increasing rates to prevent from inflation taking place, that makes zero sense to do. It's not going to help it.
It's not going to help if the real cause of inflation, which is not interest rate, is still in place. And that is money creation for unproductive purposes, for consumption. If they keep doing that, and you can do that at higher rates, you can still push out the credit creation in the banking system. You will get accelerating inflation. And in fact, then you'll find that the higher interest rates make certain things more expensive, mortgages and whatever, rents will start to move up, It's not going to end inflation if the credit creation continues. So but I wanted to show this, because you can always have scenarios where maybe, you think it could work or not. So it's an empirical question. The first empirical test using data on the US, the UK, Germany, and Japan for half a century. And it was open-ended. My question was simply, what actually does the data tell us is the relationship between interest rates? We tried together with a colleague, econometrician, and we asked, well, looking at 3 different types of interest rates, short rates, long-term 10-year government bond yields, and so on. What is the relationship between interest rates and economic growth? The official story is a negative correlation. Lower rates, higher growth. Higher rates, lower growth. So negative inverse relationship, and causation is supposed to be from interest rates to growth. There's supposed to be some causation there. What we found was diametrically opposed to this in both dimensions. The correlation is actually positive. So higher rates and higher growth always go hand in hand. Lower rates and lower growth always go hand in hand. And the causation, statistical causation that you can test for, runs from growth to interest rates. Interest rates follow growth, and therefore they can't be the cause. And that tells you that can't be the best monetary policy tool at all. That paper is published, you can also look it up. That's called, it's also open source, Reconsidering Monetary Policy. The only journal that will publish this, is a fairly good journal still, but was Ecological Economics. It's in there, peer-reviewed journal. An empirical examination of the relationship between interest rates and GDP growth. We've got another paper coming out now, which looks at real growth, industrial production for 19 countries. It's the same conclusion. So reality is interest rates work differently, and they're not really the cause of what's happening. So but central banks love to talk about it because that way they distract your attention. You focus on something that's not key, and they can then use that to make sure you don't really understand so what they're doing.
Can I challenge you?
Please do.
So here's my challenge. I'd like you to, for the next questions I ask, speak to us as if people don't have an MBA in finance. Okay, I want you to explain to the average person that's listening to this, because I know sometimes when I'm around.
Basically, this is just the part where Patrick Bet David is saying you're using big words and no one can understand you. Can I challenge you to speak differently? So he made the point there. Christian, what thoughts do you have after hearing this perspective?
Yeah, it's a good video and it's a good interview. I think the way that it really resonated with me, I actually spoke to he's a tax advisor, but he's he analyzes these markets and he advises clients based on what's happening. And he said the Fed is really only in control of really two things. And they're in a constant battle at balancing both of them. It's not inflation. It's not monetary supply. It's not anything like that. It's unemployment and the interest rate, right? And they're always in a balance of keeping the interest rate low enough to stimulate growth, to stimulate a good, GDP and provide enough business opportunity. Because when you guys think of stuff like David was saying, stuff that people use to interest rates to buy, a big thing that we didn't mention is businesses, right? So people get business loans, SBA loans, they get acquisition loans, they get merger loans. Elon Musk is buying Twitter right now, right? He's using a loan to do that. I hope everybody doesn't think he's actually just like withdrawing 50 billion from a bank account, right? He's getting a loan based on his assets to accomplish that, right? So, and that's going to allow people to have more job positions and allow him to invest in his business and that allows growth ultimately, right? So the Fed has to balance that. And then when stuff gets a little crazy, when we print too much money, when monetary supply gets out of control, the only way, since they don't have, like what David's saying, they don't have control directly over inflation. We can't just say, hey, higher rates is going to lead to less inflation. They control the other end of the spectrum of supply versus demand. They just, in fact, demand. And when they do that, they make things harder to borrow. They make businesses harder to start. They make mergers and acquisitions harder by making the interest rates higher. They make real estate harder to acquire because their interest rates are higher, right? And because of that, they're hoping there's just less activity. Ultimately, it leads to a higher unemployment, which is how they bring demand down, right? So it's just like David's saying, it's not a direct correlation, interest rates to inflation. It's interest rates to all these other things that they're hoping ends up having an impact on inflation, right? That's the biggest thing that I think of when I hear that, David.
Is it contradictory to what you had heard in conventional wisdom that you can affect inflation by raising rates or lowering rates?
It's absolutely contradictory because I think that's kind of preached in the general market understanding that higher interest rates lead to lower inflation and a low interest rate environment leads to inflation and a higher monetary supply. But those things aren't necessarily completely correlated. A lot of times they have, they happen in the same period of time because typically when we're printing a whole lot of money, there's a whole lot of new employment. I mean, it's like in COVID, there was a massive wealth transfer during COVID, right? I mean, an insane amount of these PPP loans and EIDL and all this stuff that went out to businesses to make them better, not better, but threw a bunch of money into the system. Like that ended up going to employees, that ended up going to new hires, that ended up going to really low unemployment rates. which in turn turns around and has people spending more money, which inflates assets, which has real estate being worth more. And used cars, I mean, the used car market was insane during COVID. It was wild, right? But it's not one thing that causes the other. It's one that goes and causes 15 different things happen that then have an impact on inflation.
It also matters how you measure it, because if you are measuring inflation, like I do hear that background noise too. Kyle, do you hear that on your end?
No.
Christian, do you hear it?
I do hear it. I think it might be Kyle's mic. I don't
Let's
know.
see. Let me try to mute here.
I think Kyle, you might. Yeah, that was you. I think
it
you
is
just
you.
need to, maybe you have like a cable running too close to your microphone or something. It sounds like the feedback that comes from that. But if you measure inflation as price increases going up, then it would make sense to say raising rates will stop inflation. But what you're really saying is rising rates stops the price of assets going up. And lowering rates does make them go up more, particularly if they're sensitive to leverage, like real estate would be, like cars would be, like things that you typically get a loan to go buy. But inflation isn't actually like it's not accurate to say it's prices going up and down. Prices going up and down are a symptom of inflation. Inflation is actually just how much money supply is there. This is how, if you went to BPCon and you heard that video that we played of me predicting what would happen in the market during COVID, this is how I knew what was going to come. Because I realized we're printing a bunch of money. We can temporarily slow the economy. I use the analogy of putting a kink in a hose. You can stop the flow of water. It just kind of dribbles out if you put a kink in there. But if you don't actually turn off the water supply, at a certain point, that kink straightens out. And then what does the water do? And if that water is our money supply, I knew the price of assets was going to increase a lot because we had printed too much money. And now the value of all the dollars that were already in existence goes down. So you need more of them to get the same thing, which is how I predicted that prices for real estate would go up. It's actually much more simple than what people think. You get misled if you don't understand what you're measuring when you measure inflation. Or if you're under the impression that you can increase our money supply by 80% and that it's not going to affect the prices of things. You really shouldn't be surprised that steak is expensive and seafood is expensive and groceries and milk and everything and gas. It's all more expensive. All of our dollars are worth less. If you're building a financial fortress, you're thinking about this, because if you're in a job where you're not getting raises or you don't have the opportunity to make more income by selling more or selling a more expensive asset, inflation is like a tax. You're being taxed significantly more. For instance, let's say you're like my mom and you're a teacher. I guess she's a principal at this point. She gets a fixed salary and then they get like a cost of living increase, which is typically like 2 to 3% every year. Maybe you're a nurse, or you work in healthcare, you're a first responder. They typically have contracts that factor in a raise of somewhere in the 2 to 4% every year to account for inflation. And you think it's a win. Well, if inflation was 18% or 30% and your raise was 2 to 3 or 4%, you are getting hammered. You're losing a ton of money and you don't know it. So when everyone's like, oh, the prices of everything is going up, how do we get them to come back down? What I'm telling you guys is they don't. They only could come down if you could take money out of circulation. You have to decrease the amount of dollars that are circulating. So why is this relevant? Why am I talking about this all the time? Because people keep saying that real estate prices are going to come down. They want to wait for prices to come down. Now, there are temporary things that make prices go down, and then there are long-term things that make prices come down. A temporary way to decrease the price of real estate or cars or anything you borrow money is what, Christian? I know.
Impact demand. No, you're good.
Yeah, you impact demand by raising rates. That's exactly right. So either like either nobody wants a house anymore because now we all want to live in our cars, or like maybe Elon Musk actually builds a house that is a car. He might do that. I wouldn't put it past him. Hopefully he doesn't do that right away because he's busy with Twitter. But like that's something that could impact demand. But normally what they do is they just raise interest rates. Now the thing is less desirable. There's less demand for it because it's more expensive. So prices have to come down to sell the same amount of stuff. But that's not a long-term solution, because how long can you keep raising rates for?
Not indefinitely, that's for sure.
No. And one of the reasons why I am very confident that they will not raise rates forever is because of the way that we actually raise money. So if you guys follow the way that Americans pay the deficit, we don't tax enough to pay our bills. We're like a household that doesn't earn enough to cover our payments all the time. So what would you do if you made $9,000 a month, but your bills were $12,000 a month? As a household, you'd put $3,000 on your credit card every single month. Well, the U.S. government does a form of it where they keep raising the debt ceiling. That's raising their credit limit. But what else they do is they sell treasury notes. They sell bonds. They do things to create revenue for the country, and they pay an interest rate to other people to borrow the money. So if you're ever looking at like a bond, that's basically what you're doing. You're giving a loan to the government that they're going to have to pay back. If they're borrowing your money and they're paying you, say, like a percentage to borrow your money, but then they have to pay a higher percentage to pay it back because they've kept rates so high, it makes it harder for them. They have to keep giving you higher and higher amounts on treasury bills and bonds to get you to let them borrow the money because they keep raising the rate. It makes it harder for them to do this. So at a certain point, they realize our debt is growing exponentially because we keep raising the rate, which means when we pay money back, it's with more expensive dollars. So they have to lower this. They're only doing this for a short period of time so that they can make it look like they beat inflation. And what I'm trying to tell all of you is that you don't beat inflation like this. You cannot beat inflation by raising rates. You can only beat inflation, which is making less dollars in circulation, by pulling dollars out of circulation. And they are not doing enough of that. I don't know if that can be done. Like, it's a very complicated thing to go about trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. Okay. So to come full circle, while real estate prices may be coming down because they are artificially reducing demand by raising rates quickly and swiftly and powerfully, right? Like the Jerome Powell and the Fed are kind of acting like, you guys watch Islam Makhachev just take out Charles Oliveira the other night. Like, his style of fighting is freaking violent and it doesn't stop, and he just keeps coming, and it's like an onslaught that you can't avoid. That's kind of what the government's doing with these rates. They won't do it forever. And when they lower them, you're going to see the price of assets go right back up because there's too many dollars that are in circulation. I see Chester talking about, what about quantitative tightening? I would be open to hearing an argument about this. I just don't think that when you're trying to do quantitative tightening, I don't have a firm enough grasp of exactly how to explain it, but it slows down how much money they're putting into circulation. It might take a little bit of it out, but it doesn't get rid of all of the inflation that they've already created. It just slows down how much more of it is being created. I don't think you can actually take it out of circulation completely. Once the credit has been created, it's been pushed into the economy, it's on a balance sheet somewhere. The Fed can try to take it out of circulation and put it on their books, but it doesn't really work that well. So prices are going down on real estate. They're going to be going back up. And that's important to you guys because you need to be spending your money. You need to be investing your money somewhere where it's going to last. You need to be building a fortress, because when inflation comes roaring back, once they stop pushing the rates up, which just slows the velocity of money and it slows the raising in prices, but it's not slowing inflation. All these people that were sitting here saying, I'm waiting for the crash, are going to be just like they were during COVID. Oh my God, I got to buy a house right now before prices go up anymore. And all this talk about I'm waiting for the economy to crash is going to be gone. Just like I was telling you guys during COVID, it was a kink in the hose. Before we move on to answering some of these questions and bringing in callers, Christian, do you have a perspective you'd like to add on what you think, if you see it any differently than I do, or maybe something that I failed to mention that people should take into mind?
Yeah, I think one, in response to what you just stated, and then I got a second fun thing to share. My first response to you is the only way, really objectively, that you can think of the government being able to take money out of the system is the only expense we pay to the government. It's taxes, right? So if you're going to be entering into an environment, and this is my opinion, but if you're going to be entering into a financial environment where you know the government's going to have to make up ground, I think it's possible that they could attack a tax system, right? And they could increase taxes. They could play with capital gains, all these things that we've heard rumblings of, estate taxes, all corporate tax, all these things that have been trying to get attacked. My obvious defense to that is invest in the asset class that is the most favorable from a tax perspective in America, which is real estate. It's not stocks with capital gains. It's not corporations. It's not, if they come after that, it's not estate and inheritance tax. If they come after that, a lot would have to change for them to come after real estate, like fundamental built-in guidelines in the tax code, right? So they have a lot more ground to make up in real estate. right? So, I mean, if you're looking for a hedge against that and a protection in a time where that may be their pursuit, I think that's another strong point for real estate, right? So that's what I was thinking when you were talking, David. I also wanted to share, I pulled up for everybody, I know everybody's seeing the doom and gloom articles and everything. I pulled up an article from every year dating back to 2015, and I just wanted to share the headlines. In 2015, there's a headline written by Bloomberg that said, "Housing today, a bubble larger than 2006." That's October 6, 2015, article by Bloomberg. In 2017, studies show in today's financial environment, homeownership cannot build wealth. As November 16th of 2017, right? September 5th, 2018. Today, it's been determined it is better to rent than buy in today's housing market. 2019, the housing market is about to shift in a way that's bad for buyers. 2019, next year will be the hardest year for the housing market to date. 2021, housing boom may be cooling as the weekly mortgage demand drops again. That's a yearly post, and I'm just pulling one. These are publicly available going back to 2015, basically saying don't buy real estate. And oh my God, it's all going to crash. And I'm pretty sure every single person in this live wishes they could go back to between 2015 and 2019 and buy real estate. Right. Obviously, invest within your means and with good financial fundamentals. But doom and gloom news is nothing new. I think that's important.
Can you hold your second point, or will you forget it if I?
That was my second.
Oh, good. Well, I'll give you time to come up with a third. One of the things that Richard mentioned was that the Fed is like a magician, where they're like, "Hey, look at what's going on over here," and then this hand is the one doing the trick. And what you're describing, Christian, is a form of the same thing. Is they're saying mortgage rates are doing whatever, homes are cooling, the market's cooling, you can't build wealth through real estate, renting is cheaper. All of that would be true if the dollar had a fixed amount. I would agree with everything they're saying if there was only so many dollars. The problem is they're doing this whole look over here. We're playing with interest rates. We're trying to change the CPI. Real estate isn't going to be worth anything. We're slowing down the economy while they're just slowly pumping more and more and more dollars into circulation. That makes it impossible to win by saving. So there's another a really good interview I listened to on Lex Friedman's podcast by a guy whose name I cannot pronounce. He's a Lebanese economist. I think his last name was Amaus. I could probably look that one up if you guys wanted to hear it. But he was describing the difference between fiat currency and what we'll call fixed currency. So here's basically the difference. Fiat currency is government currency. It can be manipulated. You can make it go up. You can try to make it go down. They can move interest rates up and down. It gives you this, like, you can play with it. All right. Fixed currency is something more like gold. There's only so much gold. And you can add gold to the supply of gold, but it takes a lot of effort. It's expensive. You can pretty much only do it by 2 to 3% a year. And you got to spend money to mine gold. And the cost of mining gold is roughly the cost of gold. So it doesn't really hurt you a whole lot. All right. Currencies should work that way. There's this much of the thing, and we don't have any more of it, which means if you can save more of the thing, you can get ahead. This is how most of us tend to look at money. What we don't realize is that fiat currencies can be manipulated, and they always are. But we operate as if we have a fixed currency. So this is the whole argument behind why people say Bitcoin is brilliant. It's because there's a fixed amount of it. It's very difficult to make more. It's that simple. Let me just save you all the time that you're going to spend listening to nerds talk about Bitcoin all the time. It is a currency that is very difficult to manipulate and add more of. And that's why people believe that it's a better system. It sort of mimics gold as much as a electronic currency can. What I'm getting at here is that it's not if fiat's better or if fixed is better. It's that if you're playing the game thinking you have fixed currency, but you actually have fiat currency, you're going to lose because you think saving can get you ahead. Saving can get you ahead in a fixed currency. It does not with the fiat currency when it's being increased. The only way, hear me say this, the only thing that you really need to take out of this video on this Friday night, the only thing you need to understand is that you build wealth in a fiat system by investing. You have to grow the money that you've already saved. It loses its value when you save it. It shrivels up into nothing, okay? It's like having a fruit. You can't save it forever. It eventually wears down and goes bad, and it's useless to you. You have to take that fruit in this hypothetical example and go replant it to make it grow into more orchards. You always have to be doing something. It's like a stream. If the stream ever just like stops flowing and it pools into a cesspool at the very end of it, it starts to become bad. You get bacteria in the water. It becomes poisonous. The water has to be flowing. Your money works like that in a fiat system. This is why we're telling you to invest it. We are not saying invest all your money because we're salespeople that are trying to just get you to buy our products. Me, Christian, and Kyle own real estate. We invest our money into things. Even if it's something you're investing in like stocks, you have to put it somewhere. In fact, I would even argue if you're getting a 10% return on your money, you're probably only losing 8 to 10% of its value, because inflation's probably ripping through us at somewhere between 18 and 30% right now, and you just don't know it. You're not feeling it right now, but you have to invest your money to get ahead in a fiat environment. Is it fair? No. Is it good? No. Are you getting ripped off? Yes. Is this so that government can print money and politicians can stay in power? Yes. Does complaining about it help? No. This is the way it works, right? So listen to us that are trying to teach you the way that the game is played. You got to buy something like real estate. You will win in a fiat environment if you buy real estate. And the reason is that most of your costs with real estate are fixed. And as the fiat currency becomes worth less, you need more of it to buy the same thing, which what does that do to your rent, Kyle? Sorry, you're muted still.
I'm working in the background, getting all these people coming in, so I didn't even hear what you were saying.
All right, I'll throw it to you, Christian. If the dollars are becoming worth less, what happens to the rent every year?
Rent's going up.
That's it. And what happens to the value of the asset every year?
Everything goes up, the dollars, but it's not even the asset's going up. The dollar's just worth less, right? It takes more dollars.
That's it. So don't trick yourself into patting yourself on the back and saying, I'm so brilliant. I bought a property for 300 grand and now it's worth 350. You didn't do anything. Inflation did all the work. You just put your money in the right place and let inflation do its thing. And that's all that my philosophy for building wealth is really built on. You got to do something. You got to do it smart. You got to do it safe. You got to do it with urgency. And you got to have multiple income streams of things that are happening at one time. So this is why we're making this argument to you guys about the coming recession. People are going to lose all their savings. It's going to become worth nothing. They can't stop steaks from going up in value. They can't stop the price of milk from going up. We may get the price of gas to come back down if they open up pipelines in the United States. A temporary solution, just like we're temporarily making home prices come down by raising rates. Eventually, you're going to have to pay the oil workers more, and you're going to have to pay the companies more, and the machines are going to wear down, and the new machines that they have to buy are going to cost more than the old ones did. And that price is going to get passed on to the consumer, and gas is going to go up. You can't stop it, man. You can't stop this. It's going to make everything more expensive. The only thing you can do is try to run faster than the inflation that's following behind you. That's how you're going to be able to build wealth. You got to take action. Okay, I'll step off my soapbox here, Christian, and I'll get your perspective on what do you think about that.
No, I think it's all spot on. I don't have arguments. I know. Do we want to pull anybody in? I know we got a couple people waiting in here. I want to make sure we get to them though.
Yeah, we sure do. Before we do that, just a couple things. Want to run through some of these comments. Smart Home Security NY says 5 stars for the show. Definitely appreciate it. He said, great discussion. Thank you, guys. For those of you that don't know, David is actually, this channel that you're watching right now is 39 viewers or people away from reaching 10,000 subscribers. We've got 9,961. Hey. Yeah. So if you guys are getting value, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit the like button as well. I'm really liking the direction that this is headed. We're going to bring in P-Bands. He was in chatting with you a little bit earlier, Christian, a little bit about loans and what to do. He's going to come in and explain his situation a little bit more. And then we got Will coming up next after that about how we can strengthen our financial fortress, especially in his situation. So, Mr. P-Bands, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. What's up?
How's it going?
No, it's going all right. It's doing good.
So tell us a little bit about a little bit of clarification of what you were talking about when you were chatting with us there.
All right. Well, basically, I got pre-approved by you guys for a $300,000 loan with 15% down.
Okay.
And I did it with a co-signer. But my co-signer, their income is very good, but their credit is not so good, but it was enough to qualify. And their debt isn't that good either, but you guys had like a option for like a investment loan. So like the properties, the rental income was being counted too. So everything worked out perfectly.
Absolutely.
But then we got to like the process where I told him, can you just review everything and make sure everything's good because I'm going to start like sending offers. So I wanted to make sure everything was good. So I wasn't under contract or anything. So it wasn't like a big problem or anything. So
Got it.
he just let me know like, oh, okay. They're offering when we like checked everything, he said they were offering the loan, but like the interest rate wasn't high enough for me to qualify, I guess.
Yeah, I see what's happening. Okay, so I can help explain this because I know what happened now that you thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
So think of everything as everything in lending is basically priced in like we call them buckets, but it's just like risk categories, right? So when you have multiple risk factors that stack up, and I'm just using fancy terms, all that means is, you mentioned a couple of things like your FICO score, right? You mentioned something like needing the income of the property to offset the mortgage, right? You mentioned only putting 15% down, which is the minimum on investment property. You mentioned multiple co-borrowers, right? So, and I don't know where like the reserves are and all that comes into play though, right? When you start stacking a lot of those in a healthy financial environment, right, where rates are low, banks are just lending out money because they're getting money for very cheap, they typically don't have a problem with that, right? You fit the criteria, they're happy with you, you move on. When things start contracting, like what's going on in this market right now, lenders start imposing not necessarily extra fees, but they start moving those pricing brackets up. So in your situation, that 15% investment property, it is a program that's offered. When the rates started doing what they're doing right now, it became a loan that's very difficult to write because instead of just saying no, because lenders can't say no because technically it's allowed like via Fannie Mae, and that's a fancy way of just saying the government has said they can issue these loans with 5% down. That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Banks know that a 15% down loan is much riskier than a 20, 25, or 30% down loan. So they just made it really expensive, and they found a workaround to, instead of just saying, we're not going to offer it, they just made it too expensive to offer because there's like I was saying when you were asked the question in the chat, there's like protections that are in place for a borrower, right? You just can't charge a certain amount, right? And you mentioned like it costs like 6 points. And from the bank's perspective, 15% down with 6 points is the same thing as putting 20% down and being charged 1 point, right? Because you're paying 6% of the loan amount just to make up that difference, which if you just put 5% extra down on the home, it's a better deal. And the bank gets what they want. So it's stupid. It's the banks just basically figuring out a workaround to not offer a program that they don't want to. And that's why my team probably told you, hey, this isn't going to be the most beneficial route. We can't even write this loan. The banks have basically made it unwritable, right? So I know it's frustrating. It's annoying. It's something that we do have to work around when the market does what it's doing right now. What I would say is instead of having to project to pay those 3 to 6 points, save up that extra 5% and plan for a 20% down payment, and your fees are going to be much less.
I didn't even know that was an option though. If I threw down 20%, that it would be able to.
Yeah. So and granted, I don't know the FICO scores and all the other risk factors. So it's possible the risk factors are still high, but the down payment's a big one, right? When you put less than that 20% down, that's a really big risk factor because just historically, default rates and all those things that lenders care about, they have a drastic shift when you put less than 20% down, which is why they preach for that down payment so much, right?
Okay, that gives me a more like clarity of what I was looking.
Yeah, so I'd say absolutely talk to the team and say, hey guys, if I have to get my FICO to a certain level or I have to come up with a certain amount of money, what would it look like, right? Do I need 25% down? Do I need to get my FICO to 700, right? Whatever it is. That's what my team can help guide you towards that path. If it was just like, I want to put 15% down with my current standing and nothing else, that's probably why they reference, hey, that's not something that we can write right now. But we can absolutely provide some guidance into getting you where we need you to be to offer the loan.
All right, that sounds perfect. And one last question. When will you guys be offering loans in New York?
Oh, New York and New Jersey are very, very, very difficult states. I'm still hoping by the end of the year, it's sneaking up on us as quickly as ever. But New York is literally 50 out of 50 of the hardest state to get licensed in. They basically took all of the normal financial regulations and guidelines,
tore them all down and rewrote them just for New York. So
Oh my God.
they do things completely differently. All the stuff that we're doing in all the other states has no bearing in New York. We have to play by their rules. So I am still working on it. It is a priority of ours. I don't have a deadline for you, unfortunately, but it is absolutely on our radar, and we're doing our best to get it quickly.
Well, I know I'll see you guys here soon, so I hope to see you guys soon.
When we'll be there, we'll let you know. If you want to shoot us an email, we'll notify you when we do get licensed there.
All right, thank you.
I'll tell you this,
Absolutely.
Mr. P Bands. The reason that it's very hard for us to get licensed in New York is the same reason why a lot of people are leaving New York and going to Florida.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
I don't blame you, man. Maybe we get you licensed in Florida. We get your primary residence out there. And you don't have to mess with any of that.
That's the only problem. I was gonna do that, but like my job's in New York, and it's just like the good paying over here. So I wanted to have best of both worlds kind of.
You're getting good paying in South Beach now too, man. A lot of the businesses are moving out that way. Maybe you just kind of like gauge and figure out when you want to jump in on the double Dutch. But at a certain point, wages in South Florida will be higher than they are in New York as the population continues to move that way.
That sounds nice. So hopefully things work out and I can get over there.
Yeah, what kind of industry are you in?
I'm in the oil, so I'm doing boiler maintenance.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, they don't have boilers in South Florida.
Yeah, that's another thing.
You gotta learn a new trade.
I could do ACs though.
I was just about to say, that's right. You become the AC guy. Or I'll tell you what, man, you learn how to install windows, doors, and roofs so that they can be like hurricane compliant. What is it? Wind mitigation. What's the phrase I'm looking for here, Christian? Like wind mit compliant or something? What
Mitigate, yeah. In Florida, wind mit is part of the insurance process.
If you can figure out that, we can start a business with you and make a lot of money having you.
Yeah, it's a nightmare in Florida, man. Especially after that hurricane, insurance and inspections down there just they kill a lot of deals. It's surprising sometimes, but very lucrative industry for sure because you need one on every single purchase there.
I did roofing for a year. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It's not going to be any less brutal in Florida. It's very humid out there.
Definitely.
Yeah,
not.
just how New York is brutal on lending guidelines, Florida is brutal on roofing code.
Well, thank you guys for answering my question.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming in and clarifying for us so we can get you that answer.
And I'm going to contact them and see maybe we could work something out with a bigger down payment.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Thanks, P-Band.
Thank you, guys.
See ya. Hey, a couple other questions. I get a lot of these questions, actually. Christian, people ask, hey, when are you going to be licensed in XYZ state, or are you licensed in XYZ state? My first question is there a place where people can go to find that out? And then specifically, a couple questions about some states here in the chat.
100%. We were keeping it updated on our website. It was just changing so frequently that I took it down because it led to more questions than answers. Our goal is all 50 states still by the end of the year. There's a couple like New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, Nevada that probably will not be done by the end of the year. Utah's in there as well. But we're going to have a big round of them that are just going to get added this month. November 1st is kind of a pivotal date in lending licensing. Just you guys don't need to know that, but November 1st is a big date in lending. So I'm hoping right when November 1st comes throughout the next 30 days, we'll be able to add maybe 15, 20 states that we don't already offer. There's also the reasoning why it can be tricky is I usually just ask you guys to reach out. Kyle, if you want to throw it up, intake at theonebrokerage.com. I can post it in his comment as well.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Intake at theonebrokerage.com. Guys, if you just want to shoot an email to us, we can answer specifically if we're in your state, because in some states we can offer our non-conventional, and you've heard us talk about like our DSCR loan, which is just our investor loan, where we can't offer conventional loans. So a lot of times when you guys are asking, can we do loans in that state? The answer is like kind of yes. Right? We can offer some loans, but not all of them. So just reach out to us and we can tell, if you let us know what type of loan product you're looking for, like we can do commercial loans in a lot of states, right? It just depends. So let us tailor our answer to what you're looking for, instead of just giving a blanket, state list, because it's not going to be accurate based on what you're looking for, right? DSCR Hawaii, I can answer a couple of these. DSCR Hawaii, Neil, we can. When do you think you can lend in Massachusetts? Conventionally, will most likely be finished in November. We can offer DSCR there, though. Same thing with Connecticut. I think I just knocked the ones that I saw out.
And then, you saw the Connecticut one.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that was it. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you for that. So guys, make sure you take what he just said. And that's basically, it's tailored to specifically what you're looking for, because they have different types of loan products. So it's not a one size fits all. So make sure you send an email to intake@theonebrokerage.com to get a specific question answered for your scenario. So thanks, Christian.
100%.
Next up, we're going to be bringing on Will. Will has a question about his financial fortress. Basically, he is in the process right now. His question is, what can he do to strengthen his financial fortress? He's 25. He owns 44 rental units, and he's finding difficulty making the numbers work in this market. He's also very bearish for real estate for 2022 all the way up to 2024. So, Will, you want to come in and maybe elaborate a little bit on your question?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for letting me in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot of content creators, they're talking about this upcoming recession, which I believe we're already in one. And I hear a lot of people talking about what's to come. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes of what the strategy is, that's where I find a lot of people are lacking. And I'd like to hear some more meat and potatoes, some nitty gritty information as to what your guys' plan is in this current market to scale.
Who would like to start there? Kyle, you want to give an idea? I know you're kind of working that out, but where are you at so far?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Will. And this is something, if you go back to the YouTube lives that we've been doing over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, a lot of that information is laid out within that because it's super important right now to build that financial fortress. And what David's focus has primarily been on is a few things, right? One side is sort of this kind of idea of financial architecture, right? So getting your entire portfolio that includes all your assets, not just your specific assets related to real estate, but literally your personal finances, right? Your credit card debt, your good debt, your bad debt, your consumer debt, all debt that you have, right? And getting super focused on tracking, right? And focusing on David's pillars of wealth building, which includes offense, making more money, figuring out ways to build more skills to make more money. Defense, tracking what you're spending, what's coming in, what's going out, and paying off that debt. And then also investing and having a really smart portfolio architecture in terms of how you actually build your portfolio, starting with, the safe foundational type of properties, which it sounds like that's probably what most of your portfolio is made up, all the way to the high risk, high reward. So from a 30,000 foot view, that's kind of like the specific overall generalization. We can get into some of the nitty gritties, but I would say definitely get back into checking out some of those most recent YouTube videos, because that's where most of the content is. And then that's what that's exactly what we're here doing every Friday night, talking about specifically. Christian, what's your response to that?
Yeah, I guess for me personally, if you want to get into my meat and potatoes, which is a weird saying.
I've always wanted to get into your meat and potatoes.
I believe that. But I honestly, my strategy has not changed a whole lot from when we weren't headed for, or up to interpretation on if we are already in a recession, right? I know certain people have tried to redescribe or just completely change the definition of what recession is lately. But regardless of that, I think I operate by a couple fundamental structural beliefs in real estate of investing in places that I believe in. So good fundamentals of a job market or a vacation market or a place that I don't see people all of a sudden not wanting to be at, right? Places that people want to be and they want to live in, strong job markets, strong trends in that direction. And honestly, buying properties, I don't want to say for complete undervalue, but getting deals when you can, because if I'm anticipating a 10 or 15% correction, if you get a property for 10% below asking price, you're already there. Right, you have a built-in hedge to that decrease that may be coming, right? And that could be via seller credits, that could be via an interest rate buy down, whatever the case is. But I'm not buying real estate with a 1 or 2 year plan. So that's why I can confidently say my buy box, my purchase profile that I have set has not changed from what it was in 2021 or in 2020 or in 2019, right? I buy the same assets, the same type of properties in the same locations, and I'm not changing it, right? Because I have 30, 40, 50, 60 year plans in real estate. So I don't really care what happens this next year, right? I believe in my fundamentals. I believe I've built my buy box to be able to withstand any financial regulation and financial change in our system. And I know David feels that way as well, right? None of us are planning on selling our properties that we're buying now next year, right? So if we can get that 10 or 15% savings, awesome. When the rates come back down, we'll refinance and take advantage of it. But we're buying properties that work right now, right? And ultimately, if they work in this market with these rates, you best believe they're going to work when the rates go back down to 4%, right? So that's my, hopefully that helps you, William. But yeah, feel free to give feedback there. And then David, I'm curious your answer as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'd actually rather get your feedback.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just have a different thought process to the thought of marry the house, date the rate. I believe we're in for at least a 30% correction across the nation. I know a lot of people disagree with me when I say that. And with that being said, you buy right now at a 7%, 8% rate. Next year, prices are down 20, 30%. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but let's just assume that's happening. Well, you don't have enough equity in the deal to refi out into that.
Right. Rate. I like this argument a lot. Let me comment on it real quick, and then I want you to continue your thought. That's why I mentioned I'm buying properties that work at the current rate. When you start buying on the intention of taking advantage of an interest rate, that's dangerous. That's speculative buying, right? That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm saying to do. I'm sorry. What I'm saying to do is in the event you can take advantage of financial betterment by refinancing, if you have the equity, take advantage of it, right? And I will tell you, over the next 30 years, that situation will take place. It will at some point in the next 30 years. And I have a 30-year financial forecast, right? I'm not saying marry the house, date. I've never really liked that saying either, because you're absolutely right. If you have equity go away, you can't date the rate. You can't refinance. You don't have enough equity there. If you're projecting 30 years from now and you're buying at a target interest rate and a target rent flow and a target, whether it's you're buying for tax implications or whatever the case is, I'm only buying properties that do work right now. I'm not buying properties that don't work where I need a refinance to make it work. I think that's a dangerous way to invest.
Right. Now would you say you're advising people within your community to buy now no matter what the rate, because now is still a good time as long as it fits within your criteria? Would you agree with that?
I would say I think everybody's buy box is different. And what I'm saying I'm doing personally is I'm buying in asset classes and locations that I believe in that work at the current market interest rates. I can generate enough cash flow or enough tax savings. So I'm in a situation where my income that I save on taxes, and I think of $1 saved as $1 earned. And like David says, it's even better because you don't pay taxes on $1 saved, right? I have the benefit of buying real estate to save on my personal income, right? I save more money on my taxes than I would make on cash flow. So in my situation, yes, buy in any market because of my tax implication, right?
Right.
You may be somebody in that situation owning whatever Kyle said, 30 rentals, whatever it is, right? You're probably in that situation as well where your tax saving is starting to be significant, right?
Right.
Now for the first-time home buyer, do I think no matter if interest rates go to 25%, would I say buy if housing prices triple? Like, invest within your means in asset classes that work for you, that are what you believe in, right? And if you can find a deal that works, whether it's house hacking in the Bay Area, whether it's investing in a growing market, whether it's investing in a vacation market where you feel you can host a unique experience and take advantage of that, absolutely. I think there's opportunities that work in any market. I'm not telling every person to buy every house in every market. That's dangerous advice.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I think that's great. Yeah, I'm based out of New York, actually. I know the P bands.
Yeah, we got a couple New Yorkers here today. Yeah.
Yeah, Long Island, New York. That's where most of my rentals are right now. And, they're 20 to 30% cash on cash return.
That's awesome.
I don't have too much leverage on them either. So right now I've just been finding it very difficult to find those same deals that I was able to find a couple of years ago. And at the current rates, the numbers just aren't making sense whatsoever. So with that being said, I personally believe if I were to hold out for a year, maybe 2 years, stack cash, I think we're going to see some some much better deals out there, especially with the layoffs that are happening. I keep on reading, there's going to be even more layoffs coming in with quantitative tightening, with what I see happening in the everyday market. I think people are getting pinched. I look at charts all the time. The fact that real estate has gone down in every 10-year cycle, and it hasn't since 08, 09, I think it's just bound to happen. And I don't consider myself a negative person at all, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. That's just my view. And I appreciate your guys' view and your guys' feedback as well.
Absolutely.
Did you want some feedback, William, that I will try to cater towards your perspective? So like,
Yeah.
let's under the assumption that what you're saying is right. How can you build a fortress? I would say I'd start off with, if what you're telling me is you're going to wait a year, maybe 2 years for prices to keep coming down, and you think there's going to be really big opportunities. My first question to you is, what are you going to do during that year or two to increase your wealth?
Well, to increase my wealth right now, what I'm doing is I'm investing heavily in insurance policies. I'm investing heavily into the stock market because I think it's on sale right now. Brokerage accounts. I'm buying gold, and that's what I'm doing currently, and stacking as much cash as I can.
Okay. Do you listen to Peter Schiff?
I don't. I know who Peter Schiff is. He's all kind of gold guy. I don't listen to him. I don't subscribe to him.
Who are the people that you like to listen to?
I love PBD. I know
Okay.
you guys are a fan of him too.
Yep.
I used to like Robert Kiyosaki, but it's gotten to a point where I shut him off because it's just.
Yeah.
I think you guys know where I'm coming from with that. And that's. I'm just gonna stick with PBD for now.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and Patrick also is calling for a recession, or maybe not calling for, but he is warning of one, right? Similar to me. What do you think about the information we shared earlier about the amount of money that's being printed? Do you just see quantitative tightening is going to pull it out of the supply, so it's not going to create much more increase in prices?
Yeah, so I actually texted, I think Kyle was texting me back. I asked for the name of that individual, so I want to go back and watch that full podcast. I thought it to be pretty interesting. I need more information to form an opinion. But to answer your question, I think that the Fed stopping from my understanding, they're taking 90 billion out of the markets right now per month. And so I do think that when markets aren't as liquid, I do think that's going to affect the market in a negative way.
Christian, before I answer his give him advice here, what are your thoughts on his opinion that the Fed's taking 90 million out of the markets every month and that it's gonna?
Yeah, I was just thinking this. Thank you for bringing that up, David. Just so we understand, when the Fed tries to balance its balance sheet, which is essentially what QT does, there is a buyer on the other end, right? Those bonds don't just, like, the mortgage-backed security doesn't just disappear, right? A lot of times they'll sell it at a loss to balance their balance sheet so that they can get more liquidity in their system. But somebody buys that, right? So I would argue, and this is the whole problem with QE and QT, it's the toothpaste analogy. It doesn't take money out of the economy. Like, somebody else is buying that, and that asset persists through that sale, right? The only way that I've found to take money out of the economy, and yes, economists can say QT takes money out of the economy and regulates inflation. That's why we let off with that video we shared on funny enough, PBD's podcast. Because there's not a true one-to-one correlation there. It's usually cause and effect down the line. And the only way that I've found that makes sense to me in my mind, and granted, I'm not the most brilliant economist out there, so take this for what it's worth. The only way to take money out of the economy is taxes. It's the only thing that I've come to think that actually does that. Because with QT, there's a buyer. It's just a transfer of an asset. It's not a deletion of an asset. Right? That's my.
Did you want to respond to that, William?
Yeah, I I did not know that, honestly. So thank you for educating me on that.
It's complicated-ish. I'm just going to be straightforward. Even high-level, very intelligent people don't talk about it in layman's terms because they don't understand it. It's very, very difficult to wrap your mind around something this big. I don't know how else to describe. Like, space is a hard thing to understand. Economics is complicated. It's not as simple as, like, even when we say they printed money, that's not really accurate. They did not print money. They did not actually create dollar bills. I use the word print because it's easier to understand than saying they bought bad debt off of banks' balance sheets to give them cash to put back in to the economy. And now they're like trying to take that cash out, but they really can't. The only way they can do it is to sell their own stuff and then suck up that liquidity. But even Christian's point of like taxes pulls money out of the economy, right? But where does it pull it into, Christian?
To the government that usually goes to spend.
And then what do they do with it?
And then they give it back
to
banks.
Spend it on something
That's
else.
What I'm getting at. You can't really take money out of the economy. Taxes is the closest thing because the government could take money and hold it, but they don't hold it. Right?
Exactly.
They give it back out.
They go start a new program, or they go start a new something, or they go give a stimulus package, and like
100%.
Now that money just go, and that's what's tricky about this whole thing. That's what I was saying. Like, it's hard for me to describe in words that make sense to an average person like me why I don't think quantitative tightening is actually going to stop inflation, right? Because of what we're describing, it just moves the pieces around. And so what happens is, depending on what news person you're listening to or what politician you're listening to, they take like this whole, like if this is a whole economy and they just take this little tip of it right here, and that's the part that they show you, and they suck the money out of that one little piece, but they don't tell you, well, it's going into a different piece. And when that person shows their little scope, they're only highlighting that piece that shows that the money came in. So you're depending who you're listening to, money could be leaving or money could be coming in. It's all part of the same picture that no one ever paints, right? Because different people, and this is not, I hope you don't hear me saying like victimhood, conspiracy theory. That's not what this is. Human beings do this. Everyone shares their side of an argument. Like, you never hear your friend who gets in a fight with his girlfriend and tells you both sides. The girlfriend tells her side to her friends, and the boyfriend tells his side to his friends, and you got to try to figure it out somewhere in the middle. It's just what human beings do. And this is why I'm telling everyone to buy real estate. The other point I would make about what you had said is, like, you're right. If rates come down and you want to refinance, but you don't have the equity, you can't. The flaw in the argument, which isn't guaranteed, would be what would make, if rates go down, what is likely to happen to the price of the asset? It's likely to go up. The only thing that made it go down would be if rates went up higher. Okay, but let's not get into that, because I'm not trying to poke holes in your perspective. I think you're a smart guy. You're going to go look into this. You're going to figure it out yourself. So let me give you some advice based on if your perspective is the way that things work out, right? If you're waiting a year or two to buy, you're buying gold, you're buying stocks, you are doing well on 1/3 of the financial fortress, which is investing. You got 2/3 that you haven't even gotten into yet. How are you going to save more money? How are you going to make more money? Now, I know everybody tunes into this to learn, like, what should I go buy? Where am I going to go invest? That isn't the right question to be asking right now. It's not necessarily the wrong question. We're not saying don't go invest. Invest was very important when we were just dumping money into the system. Okay. You're shooting your body up with methamphetamine. You got to find something to do or you're going to go crazy. Okay. You got, like, what lawnmower are you going to take apart and put back together? What bicycle are you going to go repair? People that are high on meth, like, they need something to do. Your money needed somewhere to go when it was on all this stimulus. As we're seeing things slow down, I would ask the question of, where can you make cuts? Where can you save more money so that you have more to invest? And more importantly, where can you make money? Can you start a side hustle or a small business as a side hustle? Are you skilled in any trades? Is there any, like, depending on the area you live in, let's say you lived in Florida, right now would be a great time to be starting a construction company that could make houses pass wind mitigation insurance inspection so that their insurance premiums could be lower. You could almost name your price. Hey, this is the work I'm going to do. It's going to decrease your insurance premium by this much. In 3 years, it's going to have paid for itself, and you're going to get new doors and windows. If you're in an area where there's a certain need that's not being met, look around, see where people are frustrated. Like, it could be as simple as landscaping. It could be as complicated as, I don't know, something complicated. I'll let one of these guys come up with that. But I mean, it could be like, I help people's computers work better. I help people who don't understand how all their Apple products can talk to each other. I'll come, and for this much money an hour, I'll show you how to make your phone and your computer and your iPad and everything else use the same password and communicate. There's all kinds of stuff people would pay for. Just look for what's frustrating everybody and ask how you can start working. If you're making more money and you're saving more money, it takes so much pressure off you to make the perfect investment. You can kind of go like aggressive, just like, man, I'm going to buy some of this. I'm going to buy some of that. I'm going to put money and spread it across all these different markets. I don't know which one's going to do well, but I know that I'm better off than if I did nothing. So that's one way that if you don't think real estate's going to go anywhere and you're like, well, I want to do something, is now a good time. I don't know if you love your career. You seem like you're sitting in a pretty nice house, so you're probably doing well for yourself. You also got a nice deep V on your shirt there. So like that shows some confidence. Probably has a nice 6-figure job, but like, could you do some consulting in whatever industry? Like, what industry are you in? What do you do for work?
I'm a real estate agent.
All right. Is now a time where you could start a side hustle as a consultant for other business owners? Could you hire a couple buyers agents and buy leads and have them work those leads, right? Could you work for a brokerage like ours that would let you be a real estate agent and you can learn to do loans so that you can make money on both sides? Like, there's a lot of things. If you're already a person who sells houses, you know what you're doing. Do you want to like dump a bunch of money into advertising and pick up a whole bunch more listings? Like, there's some stuff you could be doing to earn more money. Is now a good time to try to go buy into the brokerage that you have? Maybe they're like, oh shit, revenue's down. Agents aren't selling as many houses, right? Like, we're barely scraping by. And you go in there and for 30 grand or 40 grand, you buy some equity in the brokerage. Like, what opportunities do you have that you can make more money instead of just thinking about how to do it through investing?
I'd say an obvious one, and this is, I know we're rabbit trailing a little bit from your original question, William, but you got 30 properties. I don't know if you manage your own properties or if you hire a property manager. I think you're uniquely positioned to hire somebody to manage your properties that is, on your payroll, and you save that 7 to 8% that you're paying a property manager probably, right? You may already self-manage, but that's a very obvious point of arbitrage where you could potentially cut your out-of-pocket expenses every month, right? And if you are gearing up for a 2-year investment journey to save up, and then deploy, like, I would start looking at things like that you can very obviously start cutting expenses so that you can enact your strategy in 2 years, right?
Right. Yeah, I appreciate the advice, and I just want to acknowledge you guys. Christian, you're awesome. Love the feedback, and David, the analogies and storytelling, man, it's just amazing, and that's why I've stuck to listening to you, man. You're great communicator. With that being said, I know there's probably other people that want to hop on here. I don't want to hog the whole show over here.
All right, before you go, let me ask you, what stories have I told that you liked hearing?
Every time you talk, there's an analogy, man. You just talked about this guy shooting meth, so that was a good one.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you having the confidence to come on. A lot of people sit in the comments, nothing wrong with that, but we love interacting. This helps us be better, right? So definitely appreciate you coming on and challenging us, because you asked some good hard-hitting questions, right?
Yeah, I'll hit you guys harder next time.
There you go. I dig it.
Anytime.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
You as well. Do we have anybody else in the waiting room, Kyle?
No, we don't really have anybody else lined up. So if you have any last questions here regarding the topic of the economy and the looming recession, make sure you send a text message down below. I really appreciate William coming on, because I think sometimes people are afraid to share an opinion that they think might be contradictory to ours. Yeah. And especially the way that William went about it. I really appreciate it, because that's what we're here for.
I love those. Those are my favorite ones, man. Those are my favorite ones.
Absolutely.
Props to you, William.
100%. I got a couple of these in the chats that I saw.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so I'll just go up these. If somebody does want to hop in, just give Kyle, I don't know if you want to talk. Yeah, the number's already up there. We had a question about first-time home ownership. Where was that? Do I see any first-time homebuyer programs from the administration coming back? I don't know if that's necessarily a goal of the administration right now. I think with rates high, that's typically something that may get kind of lost in the ether. I would say, though, even though they're not branded as first-time homebuyer programs, there are programs that are available to everybody that are very well implemented as first-time homebuyer programs. The FHA, if you are a veteran, the VA loan, conventional loans require as little down as 3% when you buy your first home. So even though those aren't branded as first-time homebuyer programs, if you're working with, this isn't a plug just for us, if you're working with a broker that understands your position, they'll know the right program to fit you into. right? I mean, we have some down payment assistance programs. We have things that we can cater, and they're not always in the best interest of people. So we advise accordingly to what we believe puts you in the best position. But contact a broker that you have confidence in, that you believe is gonna lead you well, whether that's us or somebody in your network or a friend of yours. Like, talk to your lender. I feel like people are afraid to come unless they're like, I'm buying tomorrow. Like, let us guide you. This is literally what we do as a career. We're on the forefront of this battle, right, in the financial environment that we're in the country. So let us, use our expertise a little bit and guide you on what program fits you best. What's another question? Oh, that was from you guys, I think. I'm sorry. We were talking about the two best recession indicators. We did just have the 10-year and the 3-year invert. Wasn't a question asked there, but that's definitely a good point. We had a question on underwriting up here. Yeah, with respect to underwriting, do you utilize 75% of current rental income on prospective purchases? You do. That is the standard rule when you don't own the property yet. You take the market rent, you get credit for 75%. And the follow-up question was, what's the DTI threshold? Usually between 43 and 50, depending on the program. FHA can go up to 55 in a lot of cases. But once again, the benefit that's going to give you for you understanding that is negligible. Let us tell you what you qualify for. Let us run the numbers. Let us advise you correctly. And by us, I mean a mortgage professional, right? Somebody that you have confidence in. Reach out to us. Get pre-approved. See what we can get you. If you don't buy, that's okay. At least you know what you qualify for, and you don't have to waste time searching for properties that are outside your price range, right? Let's make sure we get you lined up accordingly. I think that was the gist of it, guys.
Kyle or Christian, let me ask you guys. When I started investing in Jacksonville, Florida, if you each had to take a guess on why I picked Jacksonville, Florida, Kyle, what would your guess have been?
Well, beforehand, I would say path of progress.
Okay. That's a good guess based on what I've said. Christian, what do you think?
Price point?
Those are both, I would say, secondary or tertiary reasons that help me justify the real reason I decided. You know what the real reason was?
Were you just a Californian that like Oh, okay, there you go.
The guy in GoBundance, his friend from college was the vice president of a bank that said, I'll give David $1 million line of credit to buy here.
Oh, how
right?
funny.
When I had so many properties and I had such a hard time getting a lender that would let me keep borrowing, that I literally made my decision of where to invest based off what was the biggest hurdle, which was financing. Once I had financing, I had to ask the questions that Christian asked, which was, well, what's the price point? And what he meant was the price to rent ratio, right? And then Kyle's point, which was, well, how can I expect equity? Is like, is the market moving in that direction? But the main reason was, oh, they're going to give me money. Okay, I can make this work. And I'm bringing this up because so many people think the opposite. They're like, what's the best market in the whole country? And then how do I make it work when I get there? And so in order to try to make it work, they start asking questions like, well, how does the DTI ratios work? And what does my credit have to be? And what kind of income do I need? And all the stuff that's really the lender's job to figure out. Okay. What I would recommend, just based on how I invest, is you take all this pressure off yourself to try to be the perfect investor, because you won't be. You'll just never move. You go to the one brokerage and you say, here's my situation. What loans can I get? And they say, you can borrow money at this rate in these markets. Okay, that's great. And then you ask the question of what properties cash flow under those terms. And then you start asking the secondary and tertiary questions. What has a price to rent ratio that's conducive to where I can buy property? And what's the path of progress? Like, once you know where you can buy, you start looking for the strategy that would work in that market. Then you start putting together your core four. Then you start writing offers on the best houses that you can. If you go the other way, if you try to find the perfect house and then try to force the deal to work, that's when you start calling all these different lenders and shopping them and trying to figure out like, who can solve my ridiculous problem. And nobody really invests in helping you to grow your wealth. You never really build a relationship because you're like, I'm just trying to use you for this one transaction. You're better off to say like, okay, what are the best products you have? Oh, these ones work great. They're very easy. They're solid. We can use short-term rental projections if you're buying in a market like this under these conditions. And what I mean by that is we can get a lender that will give you a loan based off what we project the house will make as a short-term rental. And then Christian or your loan officer is going to say, you need to have a history of 6 months that show this property brought in money. And now, all right, I'm going to tell my agent I only want to buy something that has a history of short-term renting, and I need to see what their rent roll looks like for the last 6 months, because the lender's going to want to know that, and it eliminates all the wrong properties, and it makes your job a lot easier. And then when you see what would qualify, you just pick the best house out of those, and voila, you got yourself a rental property. And then you learn from it, and then you move into the next one. So I just want to encourage you guys. I myself, I get called the GOAT. I'm not doing it the way that everyone else is. I'm trying to find the area that has the least hurdles, and then I'm trying to find the best property that I can find in that area. You have any commentary on that, Christian?
No, I think it's unique because I know everybody knows your general story, but I'm not sure everybody knows like your story of your motivations, right? I don't know if anybody knew that, right? That you just got a line of credit. I think you've mentioned that to me, but I honestly forgot that as well. So I think that gives a unique insight, because it's easy to look at what you're doing now, what I may be doing now, what these big investors bigger than me are doing now. And it's easy to forget that there was a path that led them there. And typically that path was still employing the same fundamentals that they employ today, maybe on a bigger level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's as simple as like, you just had access to lending. Like, that's all they got. Like, that's what made you pick a market. And everybody's like, oh, there's some secret juju as to why David picked Jacksonville, when, like, funny story, it was simple enough to, like, you just had a loan. Right. Like, that's awesome. But like, people try to, I feel like a lot of times, thinking, we deal with this with our internal team, with our agents and everything. A lot of times people try to think that there's like, you think there's some secret sauce, right? Some magic potions and spells of like how to be successful. And I was just typing up a response too. I want to shout out, Daniel asked, what skills can I develop to become a great investor? And Daniel, I mean, I hate to take the easy route, but there's not some secret sauce. It's surrounding yourself in events like this, right? Taking advantage of, like, you may not 100% agree. We had William on here who didn't share our exact same opinion on where the market's going. That's healthy. That leads to good debate. Hopefully you guys took a lot from that conversation just being in this room, right? Relying on your realtor to advise you on what a house is worth, or relying on your lender to advise you on what loan product is right for you, right? Like, surrounding yourself with like-minded people who want to see you succeed and who want to grow with you. That's the secret sauce, man. It's surrounding yourself with the right people, right, to help you become a great investor. And you're going to develop the skills.
And dumbing it down, making it simple. Like, I don't try to hit a home run on every deal. Now, that doesn't mean I like don't look to make it one, okay? But like, I'm much more likely, and Christian has seen this, to find a deal and say, okay, I can get it less than market value, and I have a value add play, and it's in a path of progress, and it's safe for all of these reasons, and it cash flows under the current loan terms, and I can add square footage in this way. Okay, I've got 7 base hits that will equal a home run, and I buy the house, and I wait and see how it works out, and I adjust, and then I do better on the next one. But in the meantime, like I was telling William, I'm trying to make money by starting businesses. I'm trying to help people by doing YouTube lives like this that will eventually turn into revenue coming back my way. I'm going to try to write some books. I'm going to keep saving money. I'm going to assume the worst. And so I'm going to not live beyond my means. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do other than just buying the perfect property that will build your wealth. And what I'm getting at here is, when you do those things well, you're making good money. You're making more money every month than you did the last month, and you're saving your money, and you understand the economics behind this and how inflation is making everything worth more. It takes so much pressure off you to try to find the perfect house, which is what causes the paralysis. We're like, what if I find a better one? This one looks good. It's a 9 out of 10, but what if there's a 10 out of 10? Like, that's the problem. That's what causes a lot of people to not move. And I'm sharing this stuff because I want you guys to know I don't even try to find the perfect opportunity. I often buy stuff because I just get a text and the agent's like, do you like this house? And it's like, yeah, that does. What's good about it? What do you like? And they make an argument that makes sense, and I throw out a number, and then get it at that number, I'll buy it. Now, does that mean it was the very best house I possibly could have found in the market? No, because I probably didn't want to have analyzed 300 homes to find one that I could have got at possibly a better price. And so I don't think you guys should have to be doing that either. You want to bring in Eunice before we get to any more of the questions here?
Yeah, I think we have time for one last question. This is actually a really good question. This is one I've been seeing a lot.
No, Eunice is waiting in the chat here.
I know, she's right here. She's ready to go.
Oh.
She is the last one. Yeah. She actually goes by Victoria as an FYI, but basically her scenario is she's got some cash saved up. She's ready to buy a house. She's looking at putting an offer on a house. Her question really is along the lines: if she doesn't get it, what should she do? Should she stay and wait, or should she keep looking? So, welcome Victoria to the show. Do you mind jumping in and just telling us a little bit more about your situation and what's going on?
Oh man, so I have the opposite of analysis paralysis. Like, if I qualify for a house loan, I will find a house to get.
I love it.
The
Have
thing
you
though
talked
is
to our
that
lenders yet to see if we can get you a loan?
you guys work in Florida?
Yes,
We do. Absolutely.
Okay,
That's
then,
one
for
of
sure.
our highest volume states. We love Florida.
Yay!
texting you the
I'll
email address
definitely
right
be in
now.
touch then.
All right, can you put the
My
email up now?
situation is that I qualify for a loan and I've been looking at different places. South Florida has been kind of weird lately in the sense that not too many good deals come on board and a lot of sellers are still overpricing their homes, and it takes them a while for them to realize, hey, my house isn't going to sell at this price. So it takes them a while to come down. However, I am on a kind of tight deadline where I want to buy a house before the end of the year so that next year I can start fresh and like look for another house. I found this house. It needs a lot of work, and right now the listing agent is considering a cash offer. I was really looking forward to that one, but if it doesn't go through, I'm wondering, should I just jump into the next deal? I'm afraid that I might be a little bit too desperate, and that maybe if I jump in too quick, maybe next year it won't work out.
Victoria, did you fall in love with this house?
I'm sorry?
Did you fall in love with this house?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't. I just like the idea of the potential income that it has.
Because it sounds a little rough. This house sounds like maybe it's done a little bit of time in the pen. It's
been on the market for 100 days. They
right. It's been
recently
single
lowered
for a
it.
long time. It's got tattoos on its neck, maybe its face a little bit, maybe its hands, right? Those areas where like, you're kind of venturing into the place that tattoos probably shouldn't be going. It's a little hairy. It's like a project house, right? Like you'd have to take this house and try to turn it into a gentleman. This isn't like right out the box. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're self-aware and you know that you're in love with the idea of love, not necessarily this person, which would be the house.
Maybe.
Okay. That's okay. It's good that you're acknowledging that. What this means is you're not looking at enough houses, which is awesome because this is a super easy prescription that I can give you. If you're looking at one house, all of this energy you have to be an investor, which for the analogy I'm going to use, like, I want to be in a relationship. I know I got a lot to offer. I know I could do this, but you're only talking about one guy. It's going to turn into like, how do I turn him into what I'm looking for? And this house is probably not the best one, but it's the only one you're looking at. If you start looking at a lot of houses and you start looking at other fixer-uppers they're not as difficult, that don't need cash offers. Other houses been on the market 100 days. You even start writing offers. Like, what's this house that you're looking at? What's the which part of Florida are you in?
Miami.
Okay, and how much does this house cost that you're looking at?
Oh, $530.
Okay, that's very cheap for Miami. That is it even something you can get a loan to buy, or is it in really rough shape?
I've already talked to an insurance person that says that it might be able to pass with a 4-point inspection. If it doesn't pass with a 4-point inspection, we would take out a builder's insurance.
But sometimes if a house is in such rough shape that it can't even qualify for a loan, which means it has to be a cash offer. You don't want to buy a house like that. Right? Like maybe the guy's got a rough past. You can live with that. You don't want a guy on parole. This house might be on parole. Okay. Like it's got an ankle bracelet. It can only be doing so many things.
I love the jailbird analogies.
Yeah. You got to give it some time, right? Like let somebody else work that man through the issues he needs to get into before you jump into a relationship with. Because these houses, this is a 30-year relationship unless you can figure out some way to sell it. I'd rather see you get, like, typically, I know the 530 price point probably feels safer. It's not. you're better off to be getting into a better neighborhood in Miami and a bigger house that is ugly. You want the ugliest, biggest house you can find. Don't think that lower prices are better, because often lower prices come with really big problems or really bad neighborhoods. And those are like, one you can't solve and the other you don't want to solve. What you want to find is the house in the best neighborhood at the higher price point, but it's the ugliest, gnarliest, nastiest one that could just be made pretty. Okay.
That's the thing about this house. It's in a good location.
Well, it's
I've
probably
asked the
priced at
neighbors,
530 because it
everything.
has to be a cash buyer then. Like, I haven't seen it, but I would just, what's wrong with it? Can you tell us what's wrong with the house?
Yeah, so upon inspection, I was able to see a little bit of water damage on the roof area. Apparently, it had been repaired and it was good. Another thing is that the person had converted it into an illegal multi-unit,
Yep.
but it doesn't have any existing violations or any kinds of liens on the
So let me jump in
property.
real quick before that. The problem with getting a loan on it is if it's zoned for 1 unit per lot and they've turned it into a multifamily, the lender won't fund. The appraiser will say, oh, this is being run like a duplex, but that's against zoning violations. And the person you're trying to get the loan through, the loan officer, the lender is going to say, we won't fund. And that's why, so you can't buy it.
Yeah, I looked into that too. It's zoned for multifamily.
So how is it? So they just didn't get permits when they
They
converted
just
it?
didn't get permits.
Okay, not a big deal. Continue with your description.
So besides that, there was a little bit of exposed electrical, which it could be easily solved. I didn't see anything. Oh, and it had a little bit of mold on the ceiling, but it's Florida. A lot of places have mold.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything crazy right now.
Yeah,
Why do you think it's been on the market for so long?
It's nothing crazy. The situation is that the seller, the owner of the house, is currently living in another state, and they've been trying to sell it, and they listed the price very, very high at first, so they had no hits. And now that the property has been there for a really long time, I guess other people are kind of weary over it. They don't want to even look at it because they feel like there's a reason why it's been there for a long time.
Okay. All right. What do you think it's worth if it was a little bit fixed up?
So I did my comparables, and the area kind of fluctuates because recently there's been new construction in the area. There is a unit across the street from it that is going for 1.6 mil. 1.2. And this property looks really good. I really like the idea that if I can fix it up or like take my time with it and actually pull out the permit for it to be like a official multifamily, then it can be worth a pretty penny.
Are you going to
It
live
has
in
some
it?
equity.
Is this a house hack?
Yeah.
So
Well,
you could
it
just-
would be a house hack.
You could just buy it and then rent it out and then get the permits if you want. But if it's zoned for multifamily, you're not violating any zoning laws. Like no one might even care if you get permits for the. I mean, I don't think the comp. First off, the 1.2 comp doesn't sound right to me. That's either a much bigger house or a much different house. Like,
yeah, it's a brand new construction.
All right.
The
so
house,
what about houses that are already built that are the same size in that neighborhood? What are they selling for?
they're selling roughly between the mid sixes and low sevens.
All right. So I think you're probably. Why are you? Have you written an offer yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you written an offer yet?
Yes, I have, and apparently mine was the highest offer. However, they just want a cash buyer at this point.
Oh, so that they rejected your offer because it wasn't cash.
Yeah, they didn't officially reject me. Okay. They just told me like, hey, so we're definitely considering it. We liked your offer. However, we have a cash buyer, and because our seller just wants to get rid of the property fast, we're considering that.
Okay,
so we'll get
now I'm
back to you.
learning
In
about
other
you,
words,
Victoria. You have rejection issues here. You do not like.
I
that.
do. Okay, I'm a
I
girl.
hear you.
We have big rejection issues.
Oh, you think you guys understand rejection issues? You're not the ones that have to chase y'all and get rejected all the time. Okay, men understand rejection at a much deeper level. I hear what you're saying though. You feel like you're not good enough, and you're like, "What the hell? Why don't they want my offer? I was the highest one, right?"
Yeah.
You're taking it personal. It's
I'm
not
perfect.
that.
I am taking it way too personal.
Yeah,
But
that's
still,
why
I've been looking at other options, and I have been looking at other places in the meantime. But I like this guy. I like this man. Okay.
Yeah, he's got something about him I can tell that you really like. Like he's got bigger muscles. Or Christian, do you have something you want to say there?
Yeah, what if I play devil's advocate? I may jump into David's analogy world here for a second. What if you built up a really good group of wing women? And in this world, that's a really good lender, a really good loan officer, a really good realtor, right? These people that make it more likely that you get the house, right? So, for instance, what I would recommend you do, and it sounds like you may have a lender if you want to use us. Cool, this would be us regardless. What if your lender called the seller and said, "Hey, there's a lot of people offering cash buyers right now, but a lot of them are actually masked as loans that they're getting, hard money loans, and a lot of lenders are backing out of that market right now. What I can do is I can guarantee you I've already researched the property, I've already checked the permits and the housing record and the zoning. I feel very confident that I can fund this thing and have you a loan contingency cleared in 12 days. We're going to get the appraisal ordered right away. I've already spoken to my insurance referral partner. He already has said, and these are things that you've already done, but nobody's telling the seller that. And the seller's like, cash, I don't care. I want to be done with it. Give me the cash offer. I don't care about Victoria's offer. Give me the cash. But your offer could potentially be much stronger than a cash offer. And this is this divide. And Kyle's shaking his head because he knows this because we do this all the time. You can beat cash offers. You can. Cash offers is this whole cash is king BS.
Means nothing.
It means nothing. Most of them are financed. Very few of these like cash offers are actually cash offers. It's people going and getting hard money or line of credits to buy property. Like these people with hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank are not just throwing it at property, right? They're financing it. They're just not telling anybody. And they're getting loans that clear in 3 or 4 days and they have 15% interest rates and they go and refinance them anyways. I know because we do a lot of them, right? What if instead you had a really good group of wing women telling this guy how pretty and how nice you are? All of a sudden,
you cook.
All of a sudden that guy's like, "Oh, Victoria, maybe I don't want that cash offer. Maybe Victoria's offer."
Great mom someday.
100%.
Yeah, she's got a strong family. Like she's loyal. She can keep it down in case you do go back to prison, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I like Christian's argument here.
So
that's what we would do.
What I'm getting at, and this isn't, once again, I don't want to just make this an hour-long pitch to use us because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying all of these questions that have a similar foundation that they're asking, how can I be a better investor? How can I surround myself with the right mentality? Like you have to have confidence in your team because even though your lender may be really cheap or your realtor may be cutting his commission or your insurance agent may be getting you a cheap policy, if you're not getting advice, you're missing out on this house. True. And what's the cost of that? Okay, your lender can save you 0.25% on the interest rate, but you have no house. So your interest rate doesn't matter, right? If you're working with a team that can put you in contract, they can back you up, they can guide you in the right direction, select the right loan product for you, give you a better chance at getting an offer accepted, find better opportunities for properties for you, squeeze out more from your pre-approval than other people can. Like you're winning. Congratulations. You're a good investor. That's the secret sauce. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's like surrounding yourself with the people who know what they're doing and who do it themselves. I use this analogy all the time. Would you trust the guy at the Mercedes dealership who comes to work in a BMW? Would you trust him to sell you a Mercedes?
No.
Why doesn't he have one and he has a comparable car? It's one thing if he's driving in like an old beat up Honda, but like he's driving a comparable car to a Mercedes. Why isn't he driving Mercedes if he's sitting here selling Mercedes? Right? Same thing. Like our team, everybody on our team invests. Like we believe this. I don't want to curse, but we believe this, you know what, right? Like we do it. We do it ourselves.
This ish.
Yeah, this ish, right? Like
from a real estate from a real estate agent perspective. First of all, thank you for not cussing, Christian, because my 10-year-old son is watching right now. The fact that he knows that his dad is a YouTuber, he's like super excited. But Victoria, same thing from a real estate agent perspective, right? We just worked with a buyer. The house was on the market for 4 days and we got it for $150,000 less than the list price. And the big reasons why we were able to do that was because number one, we built rapport with that listing agent and with that seller. We had multiple conversations over and over and over, and they got used to us. They got to know us. They got to like who my buyer was and what his story was. And then we actually went in and talked about the story and why they're buying the property and why they love the neighborhood and why this is such a great home and why they want to take so much care of it, right? Because the person selling that home has an attachment to it. And yes, sometimes they just want the quick, get it, one and done, get rid of it, cash offer. But a lot of times, if you can get your agent to tug on the heartstrings and convey who you are and how great you are and how great of a buyer you are and how you're going to close on that property, that goes way further than the whole cash is king type of situation.
100%.
Thank you guys so much. I'm definitely going to take this advice.
Hopefully that helps.
Victoria, is your agent fighting hard?
Worst case scenario, should I go on the rebound or stay single till next year?
No. You go on the rebound. You're always looking. Always looking. Like, you don't know what next year is going to look like. I'd say your agent should be fighting hard. If you love this house this much, like, they should be the one going to the lender saying, what can you do to get her this house? It almost sounds like you love this more than your agent does, and that's not okay. Your agent needs to be there with you. So I would consider, like, either you're not communicating to the agent how much you like the home, or maybe you need another agent. And if this one doesn't work out, keep hunting. Find another one that will work out. Like, I love Christian's point here. I don't think that the seller understands when they say, I want a cash offer. What they're probably thinking is, I don't want to fall out of escrow. If you can get your lender and your agent to convince their agent you're not going to fall out of escrow, you can solve that problem and still use a loan to buy the house.
Yep.
Gotcha. And is there a way that I can get in touch with the seller directly, or that's a no?
Well, that means you don't trust your agent. Why don't we just get you another agent?
Yeah, 100%. That's what I would say. It sounds like you maybe work with a family member or a friend that you don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't know what the situation is, but you shouldn't have to think like that of a realtor. A realtor should be adding value, not making you feel like you have a hurdle, right? Like, let that person be your wing woman, right? You wouldn't want to go to the bar, go to the club without all your wing women, right? If you really feel confident in them, like, use your team. And if you don't feel confident in them, I don't want to say get a new team, but it may be time to consider that, right?
True.
Is your realtor listening to this right now? You're being very quiet. Okay, that's probably a yes. That makes a lot more sense here. Yeah. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you went and knocked on. Well, no, the seller lives out of state, so you can't. It'd be very hard to get a hold of the seller. Maybe just have a heart-to-heart with your realtor and just be like, hey, now that the cat's out of the bag, we need to have a conversation here. I really like this man. I think I'm in love. I need you to work hard to get me this house. What can we do? And see if they have some ideas. They might not know that you want it this bad.
Okay. I'll get on that. Thank you guys for all the dating advice. I will definitely apply it to my personal life.
Thank you
I feel like I call a talk show of, like, Delilah in the middle of at 11 p.m. or something.
What it turned into there.
With my boy problems. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. See you. Bye-bye.
David.
That could be the next, like, YouTube live. Like, after this, we do an after-hour show, and it's all about dating advice from David and Christian.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys. Are we
the new Fresh and Fit?
That's what I'm getting at. What type of format do you like? Do you want to see Fresh and Fit after hours? Do you want to see Delilah? Should we bring back Love Line, perhaps? We could do an Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew remake. Who's got the best format out there right now on YouTube or on social media that we should be replicating? What do the people want to hear? Should we get Andrew Tate to come in and talk about real estate and dating? Who are the people that we should be bringing in? What do you guys think, Kyle, Christian?
Ooh, that's a great question.
We can't bring in Jordan Peterson because no one else would get a word in edgewise.
How about PBD?
PBD would be a tough one to get on to make him show with us
for sure.
He's doing that himself. I do like that idea.
Yeah, the Love Line, Ruben said. I remember that too. That was a good one.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to be as racy as that, but we could figure out some way to do a little bit cleaner.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do think this is interesting though. Like other than just talking real estate, like what would you guys like to hear us talk more about? Do you want to know how Kyle has lost so much weight and has such a perfect head of hair? Do you want to know why Christian can wear his hat backwards and then forwards in the same show and go from being a cool guy to a professional effortlessly?
It was uncomfortable. The little buckle was hurting my forehead.
From skater to tennis player in
There you
one
go.
show.
Yeah, he did. That's absolutely. Yeah, George Gammon would be a good guest to have on. I see that, Art, but I'm saying what type of format would you like to see? What type of topics would you like us to talk about more? Are there anybody else on YouTube that you guys follow that you're like, this person has a very interesting take on a certain type of information or topic you want to hear more about that we could bring up on these Friday Night Live, so it's not pure. But there we go, William, talking about different business ventures. Would you guys want to hear shows that would talk more about what goes on behind the scenes in the David Green team or the one brokerage, specific properties? Do you want to hear more about like the bad that happens? Do you want to hear about like the people we're hiring and what the challenges we have in business? Or are the majority of you sitting there like, no, I don't want to know anything about that at all. I never want to be a business owner. I just work my W-2 job and I want to know about real estate. Let us know. We would like to hear what you guys would like to be doing. Having a live podcast, doing a live real estate walkthrough. That would be tough. How could we pull that off production wise? You'd have to have like
iPhones, pretty much.
That'd be the only way to do it. But it'd be hard to get like the cameras mic'd up and everything. That's a good idea though. Raphael, depending how you say it. Christian, who are you listening to these days on YouTube? Do you have time to listen to YouTube, or are you just
Not really? I wish I could more. Most of my stuff's boring. I listen to like Fed announcements and like nothing that anyone would enjoy. But I wish I had more time. I honestly don't have somebody that. I mean, I listen to your podcast because I got to be up to date with what we're
You're
saying.
like, oh God, what has David said, and why does everybody call
No,
us?
not like that at all. I just people ask me about what you mentioned, so I have to make sure that I know what you're mentioning. But yeah, I unfortunately I don't have something great. But
what about you, Kyle? Who are you listening to these days?
Ooh, so I love Alex and Layla Hormozy. I'm just eating them up right now a ton. I love anything PBD that he's putting out. I've been watching a ton. I've been just anything really entrepreneurial, business building. I've been putting a ton of thought process and time into that.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments, what type of content would you like us to make more of? We could actually do a dating show. We could figure out a way to make it relevant to real estate if you guys wanted it.
We could. That'd maybe be the only niche in real estate and dating, you know? Yeah, my first million is really good too. Kevin Caudo said my first million. I think Rob will
check that out. See what they're like.
Yeah, Rob was one of his guests not too long ago.
Rob who?
Abasolo.
Oh,
your co-host.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll get out of here. Hope you guys have a good Friday night. If you're watching this after it's already been recorded, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, and share this. We're trying to grow up to 10,000 is the first goal we had, and it looks like we're closing in on that number. So if you do me a favor and subscribe and tell other people about it, I would love you for that.
Awesome. Yeah, we only need 30 more subscribers to hit 10,000. So if you're watching this video after this live, make sure to hit that subscribe button, get us there. Well, with that, on behalf of David, Christian, and myself, hope everybody has a great weekend. We will see you here next Friday live at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Hope you guys all have a great one. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.